The metamorphosis from an ugly caterpillar to a beautiful butterfly sounds and feels so good. But have you thought about what happens to the caterpillar as it goes through the process? Hello and welcome to Lessons in Excellence. If change spells apprehension and anxiety, there is another side to the coin, hope for better times. In fact, stalwarts like Jack Welch have transformed anxiety into optimism.
Look, I mean, that's what management's all about. Any jerk can manage the short term by squeezing. Anybody can deliver nothing and talk about the long-range future. The whole idea for hiring me or my associates is to get people who can eat in the short term and grow in the long term, grow tall in the long term.
Jack Welch, change management leader. He entered the valley of death, shutting down divisions and cutting more than 100,000 jobs. He, however, re-engineered newly diversified GE from a caterpillar into a butterfly.
Sumantra, you've talked about the valley of death and the journey of a caterpillar to a butterfly. To me, it looks like the valley of life. Why have you called it the valley of death?
You know, the thing about change, all of us say change is good. But all the metaphors we create about change are beautiful. Just think of the metaphor. A caterpillar, black, ugly, crawling caterpillar, becoming a wonderful, colorful butterfly. How sweet. What we forget is what's happening to the caterpillar as it transforms into a butterfly. First, it goes blind. Then, its arms and legs fall off. Then, its body splits open for the wings to emerge. Which caterpillar will knowingly sign up for this transformation, right? But that's what you ask companies to do when we talk about transformation.
But so therefore, transformation, you're saying, is necessarily an extremely painful process. It is a journey through the valley of death for companies?
Yes. There is this notion of, painless transformation. If there is such a thing, I would claim I have never seen one. It's an extremely tough, and this is what makes it so difficult. Managers have to understand this, understand the pain that is associated with it, and then get into the process. If you don't understand that it's going to be painful, what happens is the first sign of real pain, you immediately back out, which is why many of the transformation efforts start but never progress, because you have not anticipated that it's going to be painful.
Geeta, in this whole journey through the valley of death, you also say at some stage that it starts with the euphoria of the ignorant. Now, once again, it starts with euphoria. Why?
It's so exciting. Change is exciting. You see yourself in a hole, things are not moving as well. The top management is geared up and saying, we can do this, we can be great, we can be wonderful. And so many companies have done so well, and we're going to be like that. These are the things that are good for you. And then...
So everybody feels charged up and everybody says, Sumantra, it's like euphoria of the ignorant.
Jack Welch did it.
Yeah.
We are also going to do it.
We can do it.
We are also like Jack Welch.
But then it's sort of, you're saying it falls into depression, denial. Take us through the stages it goes into. From that first flush of, we're going to change our company, we're going to do things differently.
We have a nice company functioning in happy mediocrity, let's say. And then somebody says, look guys, we're going to search for excellence. And that means we're going to understand what our performance is, where we'll improve. So first, as Geeta says, we are all macho people, then the facts start sinking in. You do benchmarking. Each of your operations, you say, here is the best in the world. Here is the best in India. Here is where we are. Here are the gaps. As you begin to understand those gaps, then you start going down that emotional curve.
And some of these gaps are they financial, operating parameters?
What you discover is right across the board. Right across. To be excellent, you really take a company that is performing at peak efficiency and excellence, and where you are, the benchmark the first time you do makes it clear how big the gap is. First stage then becomes denial. You say, no, these numbers are wrong. There can't be so much gaps. Of course we are doing well. So how can there be so much gaps? Denial. Then you persist. You actually say, no, these are the numbers. This is how it is. Then it becomes finger pointing. Then you say, yeah, okay, I understand. Overall it's like that. But I'm okay. All the problems are because of her. So I'm marketing, I'm fine. Production is to blame.
All right, so it's the senior middle management which starts getting resistance.
I am fine, you are wrong. The finger pointing starts.
Okay.
Then you keep pushing further. It's not that. Every area is deficient. Then starts the next phase, which is sort of anger. No, we're a decent company, right? We treat each other well. We talk with each other in politeness. Why are people talking to me like this?
This is all at the senior middle management
That's
level?
where the real, these emotions play out at that level. Then after that anger outburst comes perhaps the worst stage of all, which is laying down the tools. That is okay, I accept. I'm really terrible, leave me in peace, let me dig a hole, go underneath and lie down.
That's the resignation
That
phase
is the
of,
resignation phase.
of managers. Now, how does let's say this change is initiated by top management, by a new CEO, or by an old CEO who's sort of woken up? What does he do at this stage? Because now his senior managers are resigned.
No. And that's the critical thing. When there is denial, the senior management rule is to hit hard with facts, with figures, employee surveys. Now the leader's task is to identify few successes, push them up. There is hope. We can do it. Create enthusiasm. In each of these different phases of the journey, actually the role of the leader needs to become very different. And if you persist with what worked in an earlier phase, it will become destructive in the next phase.
That's something we'll talk about in a while.
Yeah.
But Geeta, when you reach that point of anger, depression, resignation, is that also the point at which you can now expect a bounce up? Is that also the point at which the tide is beginning to turn if you're...
Yeah, because then people start finding, okay, I'm actually good at something. Maybe I'm not so bad. Maybe, yes, here is something that if we can build on, we can improve, and that is how a company starts climbing back out again.
So what's the next phase? Once you've come out of this, once you've bounced off the lowest point, there is some smattering of excitement and enthusiasm and hope. What's the next phase then?
But then comes huge energy, huge excitement, huge number of ideas, and then the role of the leader changes, and then try and channelize this energy so that it reaches that one single objective of where the company should be.
Corporate transformation, a phenomenon that spells out a plethora of emotions. Complacence to denial, resistance through anger and depression. But as is often said, if winter comes, can spring be far behind?
So Mantra, the point at which it all starts to sort of turn around, in your experience with companies, is that a point at which also you are likely to give up? Some managements are likely to give up because you've reached the point of maximum pessimism.
I have seen both. I'll give you an example. Lufthansa, 1991. Lufthansa was really as close to bankruptcy as you could imagine. Jürgen Weber, CEO of Lufthansa, personally went from bank to bank to borrow money to pay next month's wages. Two of those banks, Deutsche and Dresdner, the CEOs are on Lufthansa board. Both of them refused to give the loan because neither of them believed Lufthansa has a chance of survival. Neither. That was Lufthansa 1991. And then the transformation of Lufthansa started, this valley of death. I think the worst point was 1992. Imagine this, post-Gulf War, the whole airline industry in trouble, Lufthansa in even more trouble because of its cost base and so on. I think there was a point then when the real senior management group kind of gave up at that lowest point of resignation. There's nothing to be saved. But I think two things happened. One, as CEO, as Jürgen Weber told me once, there were times when I may have been the only person in the company who believed it was possible. He was. And then below the senior management were a group of relatively junior middle managers who absolutely believed it was possible. It is those two who swung the balance over that period to come over but a group of people in the middle had really given up. With sorrow, with sadness, but they said, it's not possible, nothing is possible.
Okay. Now, you've also made a significant sort of distinction between incremental change and transformation, because some of the excellent companies are always changing, but that you are saying is not transformation. Transformation, you clearly say, is the transformation from the caterpillar to the butterfly, the journey through the valley of death. Give us this distinction.
I think of three different things. One is sort of incremental change, rather change as usual. In business, things are always changing. It is natural. All companies, whether you want it or not, will be changing. There's nothing you can do about it. Now you can align it right, and that's incremental change. Transformation is a company at one level. I think of it in terms of four things. There's a value creation logic. Every company has to have one. You need an organizational logic. How are we really organized at a macro level? And then you need a financial engine. What is the financial structure that supports it? And you need people process. Incremental change is something or the other in this is changing. Now I'm changing the organization. My strategy, value creation logic remains the same. I'm changing the organization. Now I'm slightly restructuring my balance sheet and the financial processes. Then I do a little on my people processes. The others remain the same. Transformation is when you are fundamentally changing this overall model. But then comes a third, which is continuous renewal. A company that reaches the capacity, which is, it's not just incrementally fixing anything, nor is it transformation from A to B, which is the capacity to continuously question the whole model and continuously evolve the whole model. That's the company that has developed self-renewal capacity. It will not need transformation A to B. It renews itself continuously.
Coming back to Sumantra's point, that when does transformation take, when is change and when is transformation? If you look at the history of Hindustan Lever, when Nirma posed a challenge, you could absolutely see it in Hindustan Lever. So it went into, oh yes, Nirma exists. But Nirma is not a challenge, it's in a different segment. So you start slicing the pie smaller and smaller and smaller. So you're still in a large position in that very small pie.
Sumantra, we've gone through the phases that companies go through in this painful process. We've also talked a little bit about management dealing, how management overcomes these various phases. Let's go step by step now. When the company is in denial, what does the leadership of the company do?
Take you and me, individuals. You can think of emotions in terms of two dimensions. One says emotions can be strong or weak. I mean, for example, fear or anger is a strong emotion. Frustration or disappointment is a weak emotion. Excitement, enthusiasm is a strong emotion. Comfort is a weak emotion. Or they can be positive and negative. Excitement is positive. Fear or anger is negative. But if you take this way, weak emotions don't lead to action. Whether they are slightly negative, they are moods. Disappointment is a mood. Similarly, comfort is a mood. So companies which start the transformation often start from these weak emotions. Either they are in sort of a comfort zone, everybody's sort of comfortable, or in that sort of mild resignation zone, mild frustration. The first step of transformation, as you go into the valley, typically what you do is push it all up to strong negative emotions. Fear, anger at a competitor, fear about bankruptcy, fear about losing job, losing company. Now, the way you evoke those is with a baseball bat. You continuously are hitting with data. We are not good. We are actually terrible.
It all starts with the excitement that change will usher in better times. But then comes the downward slide, through anger, pain and resignation. A journey through the realm of uncertainty. But through all the trauma emerges a new organization, revitalized after its painful journey through the valley of death.
Now, we've just seen how the management has come in, as you said, with a baseball bat. It's hit itself, it's hit the employees, it's hit the company and said, no good. Now, there is anger. What happens now?
Then, where you move to the positive emotions is, I think the one very important piece is identifying and celebrating small successes. So, we have right now gone through all of this difficult time. Some successes will start come. Somewhere, something will work. Pick it up. Blow it out of all proportion. Celebrate it to rebuild that confidence. we can do it. See, we did it in marketing, or we did it in the product.
But could that not lead to a premature celebration if you pick up just some of the small successes? And it could lull you into a false sense of
You see,
complacency?
that is the tension. Ultimately, some companies get stuck in that negative, corrosive zone of constantly fighting war. That's all they can do. They typically destroy themselves. In one of the stories you talked about Westinghouse, this happened to Westinghouse. Emotionally, Westinghouse got stuck all the time managing through fear, all the time managing through guilt or anger. You need to move to the positive zone. I call it killing the dragon and winning the princess. You start off the transformation killing the dragon. Here is the dragon, bankruptcy. Here is the dragon, a competitor. But then you have to evolve it to winning the princess. Paint the picture of this wonderful, attractive princess that we're all going to win.
Should the organization be setting short-term goals? Should it be setting longer-term goals? When, let's say, there is a few flowers are beginning to bloom, there's still very few, though.
So this is where the role of the CEO comes in. Down the line, there should be short-term goals. He should have, or she should have, a total picture of the longer-term goals, but then you need the workshops, you need the buy-in of the longer-term goal, and that is a longer process.
Interesting you say that downstream, in the trenches, for instance, or middle management, shorter-term goals. So there could even be quarterly goals of sales targets, or quarterly
Absolutely.
goals of cost cuts. But so no very long-term goals for them at this stage.
Until they've reached a particular point where there is a lot of restless energy, where somebody has done well in a small manner and is now dreaming big. And at that time, you need to, as I say, channel everybody's energy into that long-term goal. And at that point, the CEO's role is so important because he's helping lay a particular direction. It is actually his vision.
What happens from here now? You've got the small successes, you've got the short-term goals, confidence is returning. Now what does the CEO or the top management do?
As you start making the turn, people recognize things are happening. I'll go back to Lufthansa example. By 84, 85, the company's turning. German newspapers say the crane has wings again. The losses have been reversed. That time, you see, you can't take it cross-sectionally. The people have experienced the preceding past. They're coming out of that experience of intense fear, extreme hard work, staunch the flow of blood and so on. Then this huge amount of energy comes out. That's the time for absolute short-term goals. Channelize this energy short-term. Then you come to 96, 97. Lufthansa makes $1 billion Deutschmarks in profits. Then any vestige of we are going to die just doesn't work anymore.
Now that the Star Alliance has emerged, now that the longer-term vision of the company is unfolding, who leads the process?
See, this is again very interesting. What happens at the very beginning, we say CEO. Yes, often the CEO is driving it. It's a top-down process. But at the same time, there is a very strong bottom-up process that meets it. The first phase is really the top and the bottom together against the middle. That's what it becomes, pushing the middle. So in that first phase, you create a strong top-down process and you build a strong bottom-up process. Now, in the middle phase, ultimately CEOs can run companies. You need the senior group in the middle managers. You need them back in. So gradually, the CEO must step back and a middle up-down process must come in as a normal management process of the company. So that is what you put in the middle phase. Then by the time you have come to the long term, any company needs a strong top-down process. It needs capable, vibrant bottom-up processes, and what holds it together are these middle up-down, with the middle manager taking the initiative.
But you also talked about the CEO stepping back. Is that time for a fresh leader to come in?
No, it's a time for the CEO from being this visible general slightly back to, it's Ryan Murthy becoming chief coach.
Okay.
He's chairman, but his role shifts. Others come in the front, his role becomes coaching, guiding, embodiment of the vision, embodiment of the values, not so much right up front the charging general.
He's no longer the charging general. He becomes more the field marshal at headquarters.
That's right. And that shift.
But don't forget that nothing is ever constant in business. the environment will change, the company changes, so many things happen.
You could be running your way into smaller valleys of death all through.
You
could you?
could. I mean, not that I'm saying that that's actually going to lead to fantastic results. And the trauma which a company goes through, if you paint the picture as you have, as you're saying, I think I would hate to work in such a company.
The trauma of corporate transformation is perhaps best exemplified by Zee Telephones. In 1995, 12 of its programs featured in the top 20, and it was the undisputed leader in Indian broadcasting. In a short while though, it was toppled from that position and had to fight a grueling battle to win back market share and, yes, restructure. Next week, we meet the man who led perhaps the most drastic restructuring exercises in Indian corporate history, Subhash Chandra.